Welcome back again to the Highlight Spiel. We're back with our college football preview, bringing you the Big 12 edition this time. At the preseason media days, the Big 12 came out with their annual preseason media poll, and it looked a little something like this.
First, they had Oklahoma. Second was Oklahoma State. Third, Kansas State. Fourth, Texas. And fifth, TCU.
Sixth was West Virginia. Seventh was Baylor. Eight, Texas Tech. Nine, Iowa State. And 10, Kansas. What's your opinions on the media poll this year?
Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good.
You agree with most all of it?
Probably Kansas State probably finished in the bottom half. Maybe TCU maybe finished eighth or so.
That's
West Virginia might finish in the top five.
I'm gonna say TCU's gonna be a top five. Kansas State's going to be right there on the edge. I think Texas is the team that I'd put like at that fifth or sixth range. I'd have West Virginia in the top five. West Virginia, the past 3 years, has outperformed their preseason prediction. The past 3 years, each season they've outperformed it. Last year they predicted seventh, finished tied for second in the conference. I think you'll see them in that top three teams this year actually. Then I think they'll be followed right there by TCU, Kansas State, Texas. And then I think you have the other half of the conference. I think Baylor, they may be may be able to bounce back with Matt Rule. I don't know. I think it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time after what they were going through, And Iowa State, you got them in the bottom, and Kansas in the bottom there, and then Texas Tech. This is a big year for them, and Cliff Kingsbury really struggled as of late. I think they're in the bottom half of the conference right now.
They just lost Pat Mahomes.
So some few things in there I'd change, but I don't think you can argue with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State at the top at all. Definitely not. What about the preseason players of the year?
For the offensive player of the year, they got the quarterback Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma. For defensive player of the year, they got Dorrance Armstrong, the defensive end from Kansas.
And then the preseason newcomer of the year was West Virginia quarterback Will Greer, the transfer from Florida. Sat out last year and is ready to go. Got cleared by the NCAA for game one there, and will be ready and available for the whole season for the Mountaineers there. And great news if you're a West Virginia fan. Some of the top players in the conference, not excluding those three, of course. Who else are you thinking?
You got Mason Rudolph, quarterback, Oklahoma State. James Washington, receiver for Oklahoma State. With Justin Crawford, West Virginia's running back. Justice Hill, Oklahoma State's running back. Alan Lazard from Iowa State.
Kiki Cutie, the wide receiver over there at Texas Tech's a good one. Reggie Walker, the defensive end from Kansas State. Malik Jefferson, one of the linebackers at Texas. DJ Reed, great defensive back at Kansas State. Jordan Thomas over there at Oklahoma. Drayvon Askew Henry, defensive back at West Virginia. Kenny Hill's a guy that could possibly get up there. And I think you got to talk about Jesse Ertz, the quarterback at Kansas State, coming back after a 1,000-yard rushing season last year. Great season.
Hopefully another big year.
Who do you think out of these, do you agree with the preseason offensive and defensive player of the year? And if not, who out of these names would you have as your end of the year player of the year's offense, defense, and newcomer? Would you still stick with Greer newcomer, or do you think maybe it'll be someone else, another transfer?
Well, the offensive player of the year, I'd probably put Rudolph from Oklahoma State in there. Their offense have been something serious. Also, I mean, you can't go wrong with Baker Mayfield either. And defensive player of the year, I'll probably keep it the same. He had a big year last year. I feel him to do the same this year. And newcomer, guess we're gonna see what Will Greer is about this year, huh?
I think so too. I think it's hard to go against Will Greer there. I think you can talk about Jeff Badette, the wide receiver transferring into Oklahoma from Kentucky. Was Kentucky's leading receiver last year, if I'm not mistaken. I know he was up there. And coming in as a graduate transfer from 1 year there at Oklahoma. We've seen graduate transfers have a lot of success here lately. So it's a possibility he may be up there as a newcomer, but I think you can't really go against Greer. I think he's going to have a good season. Offensive player of the year, Mayfield's probably the favorite. I'm with you, though. I like Mason Rudolph. James Washington's potentially a guy you could talk about there even. And maybe even Will Greer if they have a good enough season. I guess that's a bias pick, but Will Greer's the guy that could be talked about player of the year offensively in the Big 12. Defensive, Dorrance Armstrong. He's going to be a good draft pick for somebody in the NFL. He's a solid player. I think that's a good pick there. And offensive, Baker Mayfield's a good pick as well. Conference looks pretty good actually on paper with the 5 teams in the top 25 actually.
You got Oklahoma at 8, Oklahoma State at number 11, Kansas State at 19, West Virginia at 20, and Texas at 23.
Out of all those teams, do you see them all being ranked in the postseason, the final top 25 as well? And if so, around where they're at, higher, lower? What
Uh,
do you see these teams projecting to do this season?
Oklahoma State will definitely be higher. I think Oklahoma will probably be in the top 5, Oklahoma State top 10. Kansas State might drop out a little bit, maybe 25. West Virginia probably top 15, and Texas probably won't be in it either.
Yeah, I think Texas is a team right there in the borderline. They're in it probably because they're Texas, kind of their name. Uh, they've got some players. Charlie Strong left, some talent there, and I think Tom Herman's going to do good. I don't know, just don't know if it's going to be right away this year. It might take a year or two, so I think that they may not be in there at the end of the year. I think West Virginia is a team that could potentially move up. It's hard to judge West Virginia. Will Greer's coming in, but he hasn't played football for a year and a half. The defense lost a lot. Of course, Tony Gibson has dealt with that the past 2 seasons and still had top defense in the Big 12.
They got Henry back.
Javon Henry's coming back. That's a thing to look at. Javon Henry's coming back. Their best defensive player was missing last year because of injury, as well as their best offensive lineman. They both got injured in the preseason last year. Won 10 games without both of them, and both of them are coming back, along with the addition of Will Greer. So could potentially be a great season, maybe 10 wins again or better, or could take a step back. It's hard to say. I think they're going to be right there about where they were last year, similar, fighting for that conference title, that top three, top two there. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, like I said, that's your top dogs right there. You can entertain them. They're 1A and 1B to me. Kansas State, I think, is another team right there, too. Kansas State, West Virginia, I think a team that's not in the top 25 that's right outside is TCU, and I think you'll see them in there in the end. I do. I think Kenny Hill's going to finally have a good year this year. He's going to bounce back. I think TCU is a team that's going to be up there maybe instead of Texas, and I think TCU, Kansas State, West Virginia are the teams that you can talk about as the surprise teams that can challenge Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Some of the bigger conference games here.
You got Oklahoma at Texas on October 14th. Oklahoma State at West Virginia on October 28th. Oklahoma at Kansas State on October 21st. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State on November 4th.
And then Oklahoma at Kansas State on October 21st. And West Virginia at Oklahoma, the last game of the season there in Norman, Oklahoma, before the first Big 12 championship game since conference realignment. And
that might be the biggest game of the season right there.
At the end, that could very well be. I think Oklahoma and Oklahoma State's a big one. A few weeks before that, on November 4th. That being last game of the season, though, it's tough because what if those are your top two teams and they play and they have to bounce back and play again?
Yeah.
That'd be crazy because they're playing in back-to-back weeks where it's round. They're still, despite having the conference championship game this year, there's still no divisions, so it's still going to be everybody has to play the other 9 teams in the conference, and just the top 2 teams will play for the conference championship game at the end of the season, and all up in Texas there. Oklahoma versus Texas, always a great rivalry, the Red River rivalry there. Can't go wrong with that. Great game. Way. Yeah, when a rivalry's like that, you never know who's going to win. Yeah. Throw records out the window. And then you also got Oklahoma and Kansas State. I think it'd be a potential good one because they got to go to Manhattan. Tough place to play. Bill Snyder, potentially his last season, maybe one more year. Who knows? But either way, Kansas State's always tough under Bill Snyder. And then Oklahoma State and West Virginia. October 28th coming to Morgantown. Could be a tough game for Oklahoma State on the road. Who knows? I think Oklahoma State and Oklahoma's your top teams, so see them in about every game on this list here. Some of the big storylines here: first-year head coaches. How are they going to handle it? How are they going to fare here? Lincoln Riley surprisingly taking over for Bob Stoops, who surprisingly retired in the offseason just weeks before camp began. And then you got Tom Herman at Texas and Matt Rhule at Baylor. Out of these 3, who do you think is going to potentially have the most successful, not necessarily season, but career?
Lincoln Riley, just because he was with Bob Stoops. He was under Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops left him with a lot of weapons. Basically the same players he left with.
And he's been there coordinating the offense.
So it's a no-brainer right there going with Lincoln Riley. You got me Baylor though. But they're in a rebuilding process. You're going to have to give them a couple years. Texas, maybe a year and a half.
I think that, yeah, that's tough to argue with Riley, but I'm going to go ahead and go on and say Tom Herman may end up being having the best career there because Charlie Strong left him stocked. I think Charlie Strong's a guy that's a great coach, and I think Texas should have possibly gave him a little bit more time. But with Tom Herman taking over with Charlie Strong's players, plus the players he's going to go out and get, being coach that he is, I think he's going to build something there at Texas, and they're going to be back on top sooner rather than later, back to the Texas that we all know and remember, and competing right there with Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. It's the Big 12's improving. I think every team in the Big 12's really on the rise, pretty much, except for maybe a couple there. But I think Tom Herman's going to have a great career. Matt Rule could be a great hire for Baylor. They really need something to bounce back. And Lincoln Riley, like you said, he's already been there at Oklahoma. He's going to just fit right in. I think they're just going to keep turning him out.
What about the first year conference championship in the Big 12 in Arlington, Texas? Will it hurt the conference, make it better? How do you feel about that?
I don't think it can hurt. I think that I wish that when they applied to the NCAA to get the to get to be allowed to split into divisions despite only having 10 teams because you're supposed to have 12 teams to have divisions. And the NCAA denied that, so they will just everyone play each other, and the top two teams meet for the conference championship game. I would like it better if it was split into divisions. Then you could have a couple more non-conference games, maybe. Not have to play everyone, because everyone playing everyone kind of hurts you in the college football race, I think. Because if you've got a lot of good teams and everyone has to play everyone, you got potentially three good teams, but they all have one or two losses because they've had to play all these other good teams.
Yeah.
And whereas in another conference, they don't have to play some of the other good teams on the opposite side, like the ACCs and SECs and things like that. So I think if the Big 12 could maybe add a couple teams in expansion, it would help them greatly. But I think the conference championship game is definitely not going to hurt. It's going to help. I think if a team can end up with one loss or zero and win that conference title game, they should definitely be in the college football playoff. Give them that extra point with that conference championship game that the college football playoff committee is always talking about, that extra data point. I think it'll be great.
Cliff Kingsbury, he's on the hot seat at Texas Tech. You think after this year he'll still be there, fired, or what?
I think that it's make or break time for him. I think that they started off hot in his first couple years. I think it was either his first or second season when they started off 5-0 and they were ranked in the top 10. But since then they've been struggling really hard. They haven't had a great defense. I mean, I haven't had any defense really, rather to put it, frankly.
He's been there 4 years, 24-26 record.
24-26 record in 4 seasons. Defense has struggled every season. I think this season you got to turn it around and you got to at least show some signs of improvement on the defensive side of the ball. Show some signs of growth as a head coach, or it may be time to show him the door after this season. I think he has this season, maybe one more, possibly, but I think this season's probably his make or break season if I'm guessing. The way college football's going, yeah, it's time. He's on the hot seat for sure.
That's how I feel too, especially if you're 4 years in and you're 2 games below 500 and you're 50 games and you're 2 games below. Gotcha. Time to get rid of you.
So we mentioned the conference championship game and possibly helping the Big 12 with the college football playoff berth, considering they've only had the one with Oklahoma a couple years ago. Do you think that they can possibly get not only the berth, but possibly get their first win in a college football playoff game? The Big 12 has yet to win a college football playoff game. Can they get that done this year?
If Oklahoma couldn't get it done in 2015 with the stacked team they had, then I just don't see it being able to happen this year. I mean, Oklahoma might be able to repeat and go back, or Oklahoma State, or one of them teams. But will they get the win? Probably not.
I think that this year's a good shot, really, potentially. If any of them top teams get in there, it just depends on matchups. Really, it's hard to say because you don't know who they're going to be matched up against in the playoff. But Oklahoma's got a great team. Baker Mayfield, they got the transfer coming in, Badette, still loaded at running back, always great on defense. Oklahoma State, I think, is a team that's a lot of people are sleeping on. Oklahoma's mentioned as the top dog, but I think to me they're right there tied together at number one. Oklahoma State brings back Rudolph and Washington. Great combination. James Washington, one of the top receivers in the whole nation. Mason Rudolph, one of the top quarterbacks in the country. I think Mason Rudolph, James Washington, and Baker Mayfield, over at Oklahoma are all 3 potential Heisman candidates. Definitely for sure. And so I think they could possibly get a win this year if they can get that berth. If they can get a team in there that has 1 or less losses with the conference championship win, I think they could potentially get in there and make some damage, make some noise. We spoke of first-year head coaches earlier. Let's talk about first-year head coach from last season, Iowa State, Matt Campbell. He didn't have a winning record in his first year, but they did compete. They competed in games. They were in games against Baylor, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and even Oklahoma. They was in that game for a while. Do you think Matt Campbell at Iowa State will continue to improve, and he has them on a road to get out of that cellar that Iowa State and Kansas have seemed to have been in for the past few years in the Big 12?
There was 2-7 in conference play last year and 3-9 overall. So to get them out that cellar, you're gonna have to win at least. You have to have a winning record and not lose so many games in conference play.
I think get up, at least 6th, 5th in the conference or higher. They need to.
Well, they was number 9. Yeah, at least number 5, at least 5th in the conference to really improve. I mean, a position ahead is improving, I guess, but not really what nobody really wants to see.
Yeah, I agree. You definitely. In his second year, I think you got 3 wins in the first year. You need to up that to 4, 5, 6 in the second year, just to show steady improvement. And, hopefully maybe win a couple conference games. You won 2 last year. Maybe you can win a 3rd this year. Just show a little bit of improvement. And I think that he has them on a good trajectory, though, after that first season with the way they competed. I think they fought and they're fighting hard for him. And he could possibly have something there. We'll see.
You think Kansas will be improved this year? They beat Texas last year to snap a 19-game lose streak.
Right, David Beatty came in there at Kansas, and they still struggled, but they also competed in some games, not to the extent that Iowa State did, getting the 2 conference wins, but they did, like you said, snap a 19-game losing streak against Texas, which I think is a good sign. I think Kansas has just been down for so long; it's going to take a while to get them back up. I think Beatty maybe could possibly do it. I don't know. It's going to be tough for anyone to do that job, but it's got to happen sometime. Nobody stays at the bottom forever, just like no one stays at the top forever.
Kansas has been at the bottom 5, 6
years.
Since at least 5 years, at least.
Since Charlie Weiss in like 07 when they was up there with number 2 in the country and stuff.
That's when they had
quarterback Todd Reesing.
And David Briscoe, the receiver.
Yep. Yeah, it's probably been since about then, since Kansas. That was one of the last times Kansas was good. And Keith Talib on the team there, and they beat Virginia Tech in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, you got to remind me.
Of course, I had to remind him of it. But, I think that Kansas, can they get back to that level ever? I don't know. But they could definitely get out of the cellar that they're in right there with Iowa State. Both of them teams could potentially get out. I hope that they do. I'd love to see everyone in the Big 12 be competitive and be a very tight race throughout.
Could Kansas State shock people? They got Bill Snyder returning and their 1,000-yard quarterback running quarterback Jesse Ertz.
1,000-yard rushing quarterback Jesse Ertz coming back. And Bill Snyder, a lot of people thought he was going to retire after last season, but decided to come back for another year. I think it's a big move. I think that it's going to help them. When Bill Snyder came back to Kansas State, he rejuvenated the program again, just like he did when he was there the first time, and they play hard for him. It doesn't matter what type of talent he has. He always seems to get the best out of his players, and they always have a great record and a great season. And Jesse Ertz is his latest project, and he's done great things with him, and I think he's going to have another great year this year. I think Kansas State will be a top 5 team in the conference, potentially top 4, top 3. They could be a team. Yeah, they could shock people. They could pull an upset. They can upset an Oklahoma or an Oklahoma State. They could easily pull it off. They play great defense, hold on to the ball, keep their teams from scoring a lot, and that formula's worked great for them in this high-powered offensive Big 12. And I think that they could definitely shock somebody. Do you agree?
No. I mean, they got Bill Snyder back. Yeah, that's a plus. The quarterback's back. That's a plus. But you got to have more than them two. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got 2 good leaders, but I see them probably top 7 in the conference, maybe rounding out the top 7.
Wow, you think they're going to have a year where they take a step back?
Take a step back, yeah. And that's when Bill Snyder going to
retire. You think Bill Snyder's going to? I was about to say, if they do have a year like that, do you think that would lead to Bill Snyder possibly taking a step back and retiring?
Bye, Bill.
I could see that potentially. I also think that if he has a great year, he may want to go out on top. I think that this is probably his last year. And if they take a step back, though, I think he was the type of coach that would come back for another season just because he didn't want to go out like that. He wants to go out with a 500 record or better, at least top half of the conference or something. Yeah. I think Bill Snyder, after all he's done, he would want to do that. But I think if they have a good season, like I think they will, in the top half of the conference, this may be the last year for Bill Snyder.
What about your boys, big old West Virginia? Won 18 games the past 2 years.
Finally got it going again. I've been a fan of Dana Holgorsen all along, and I've never lost faith in the guy. I knew he had us right. A lot of other people did, but I could tell what he was doing, and he was building, he was changing, and he's really adapted as a head coach. Hired Tony Gibson in 2014, went back to running the 3-3-5, a lot of great things, and I think that he's shown it even more this year when he brings in Jake Spavital, who's been shown a great offensive coordinator. He was back at West Virginia in 2012, didn't call the plays. Dana's always called the plays, and went off, did his thing at Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel, Cal with Davis Webb, and now he's coming back to West Virginia with this quarterback transferring in from Florida, Will Grier. And Dana's showing his growth as a head coach and letting this guy, handing him the play calling duty, saying, I've seen you can do it. Go ahead and run this offense. Do this for me. And just another step in Dana's growth as a head coach has to go along with him switching defenses and going to more of a running offense to help his defense, and now giving up play calling duties. And I think West Virginia is definitely on the rise. 18 wins in the past 2 seasons, like you said, 10 last year. And I see no reason why they won't get 9, 10, or more this season. Will Grier coming in. What do you think about Will Grier coming in? And with him and Jake Spavital, and of course the Big 12's leading returning rusher also on the team, Justin Crawford. Justin Crawford coming back. The addition of a more of a passing threat quarterback in Will Grier and a great offensive coordinator in Spavital. How good can West Virginia's offense be this season?
I mean, it's hard to say they can't be too good for the simple fact that, Dana Holgorsen said that Will Grier hadn't lost since high school. He's undefeated in his college 6 games he's played, and he hadn't lost, like you said, high school. So, he's a proven winner. Justin Crawford, you've seen what he did last year when he was healthy. I don't know too much about Spavital, but with them two, it's hard to call a wrong play, I guess.
I think so too. I think that the defense is replacing a lot of starters, but if Tony Gibson can work his magic like he has in the past couple years, that they'll compete for that one of the top 3 spots in the Big 12 again. And I think they're a team that can shock some people. Watch out here, watch out. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, we talked about that battle. Jeff Badette coming in at Oklahoma. Do you think he's going to be the team's leading receiver, and him and Baker Mayfield going to have instant chemistry coming in from Kentucky there as a graduate transfer?
If they've been working on it since he got there, they'll be like peanut butter and jelly. But if not, it's not going to mesh well at all. They're going to be probably the worst combination in the league.
And they'll need to step it up to keep up with Mason Rudolph and James Washington.
Because they've proven that
exactly. They're proven, and they're going to even take that probably to another level this year. Come back for their final years.
They're like Brandon Wheaton and Justin Blackman.
Right, and they're coming back for another year. Those guys just had the 1 year, and these guys have had great seasons and come back for more. With that, let's talk predictions. Big 12, the first Big 12 conference championship game. Got your top 2 teams will be meeting up for it there in Arlington, Texas. Who do you see finishing as the top 2 teams in this conference, and do you see them having 1 loss, 2 losses, and then who's your Big 12 champion in the first ever Big 12 conference championship game?
Oklahoma, definitely number 1. They'll probably lose maybe 1 game. And that 1 game I got them losing to is Oklahoma State. If they beat Oklahoma State, then they're going to lose to West Virginia. But they're going to lose at least 1 game. At least 1 in conference play. Number 2, I don't want to say Oklahoma State, but that's probably who I'm going to have to favor, Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma and Oklahoma State
that's
matching up in
the
Big 12 title game. That would be great joy for Big 12 fans. They're a great treat getting to see 2 Oklahoma State Bedlam matchups in 1 season, 2 Bedlams in 1 season. Getting them in the regular season and getting them in the conference championship game, that'd be awesome though. Can't beat that. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State matched up in the championship game. That's the big matchup everyone wants to see this year. Who do you got coming out on top? You said in the regular season Oklahoma State defeated Oklahoma in your prediction. So in the rematch,
gonna win it.
Oklahoma gets them back.
They won like 10 Big 12 titles in a row type thing. So sheesh, it's harder to throw something like that. You got something constantly going and getting better. Oklahoma.
I agree. You can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with Oklahoma pick there. That's tough to go. Even losing Bob Stoops, a lot of people think they may hurt him, but I don't think they're gonna take too big of a step back. But,
what about your predictions?
Talking about predictions, I think this is a conference where they're losing Bob. They are losing Bob Stoops, so they could just take a step back. This could be a year where there's a lot of competition in the league. I think like we said, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, your top teams there. I think Oklahoma State having to play in Morgantown is going to be tough. And can West Virginia beat them? If West Virginia beats Oklahoma State, then goes on the road and loses to Oklahoma, but still gets into that Big 12 championship game, that's what my prediction is going to be. They're going to beat Oklahoma State and maybe lose to Oklahoma last game of the season, but then bounce back and play them again in the Big 12 championship game.
Oklahoma and West Virginia.
Oklahoma versus West Virginia. I think that West Virginia's this is the season, man. I'm telling you. I just got a feeling that they're going to be right there. If they're not in it, they're going to be very close. And a lot of Oklahoma State fans probably going to hate that pick, but it is what it is. You can even reverse around and say Oklahoma State and West Virginia in the thing. I think it's going to be one of the Oklahoma schools in West Virginia in the Big 12 championship, though. For purposes of the video and the predictions, we'll say Oklahoma, West Virginia.
Oklahoma, West Virginia.
And then your Big 12 champion. It's hard to go against the Sooners, but I'm going to do it just to go against this guy. West Virginia Mountaineers are going to be my Big 12 predicted champions just to go against this guy. It's an off-the-wall pick.
Just to see who he picks.
If he took West Virginia, I'd have to go with Oklahoma State because realistically, I like Oklahoma State over Oklahoma this year. I think they're the better team. But I think that Oklahoma and West Virginia is my Big 12 conference matchup, and West Virginia taking it. West Virginia is my Big 12 champs this year. Just more disagreement for us to look back on our predictions throughout the year. But thanks again for joining us on the Highlight Spiel with our college football preview. Stay tuned for the Pac-12 edition and the SEC edition too, followed up by that to close out our college football preview special here soon. Thanks, guys. I'm Jordan.
I'm Fletch.
And tune in next time for the Pac-12 special. This has been the Big 12 edition on the Highlight Spiel brought to you by Trio 4 Productions. Thanks, everyone.